Good evening. The Jails Law Enforcement Courts Committee meeting is called to order. The first item of business is adopting the agenda. The item number 6 on the agenda has been modified for accounting purposes only, and I asked for approval of the agenda with the revised ordinance. Could I have a motion?
So moved.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. The agenda's passed. Item number 3 on the agenda is the reports, and there will be no committee chairman report tonight. The first report is the juvenile detention report. Director Tingsley.
So they won't give me a copy of the ordinance that they just changed. Not very transparent.
Go ahead, sir.
Good evening. In the month of November, we had 34 intakes, with the average length of stay being 7.68 days. The average daily population for November was 13.65. The highest number of intakes were Battery Third misdemeanor at 5. Of the 34 intakes from Washington and Madison counties, 25 were from Division 3 and 9 were from Division 8. There were 5 total transports, 4 were done by the Washington County Sheriff's Office, and 1 was performed by JDC. Are there any questions that I may address at this time?
Yes, thank you. I asked this a month ago, and I don't remember what you told me, but why is there a difference between the number of intakes between Division 3 and Division 8? Why is it that significant a number?
Mr. Johnson, I really can't answer that question, just because we house the juveniles. There's a lot of factors that are in place.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
that's fine. Other questions? Seeing none. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Item 4 on the agenda is the Sheriff Office reports. First is the enforcement activity report from Sheriff-elect Jay Cantrell. And he's smiling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The enforcement report is in your packet, and nothing out of the ordinary to report on that, except our training hours are up, and that's as a result of having a part-time 2 class, sending 9 people through that, and then 4 people through the academy. So those are the reason our training hours are up this month. I will make you aware that we were informed Thursday by our medical provider that they are going to discontinue their contract at the jail based on the fact that they can't get malpractice insurance at a reasonable rate. It's going to go from $125,000 to $650,000 for their medical malpractice insurance. So we're working now with our legal advisor and with Mr. Lester to develop some either RFQs or RFPs, whatever we deem as appropriate, and get that out for bid. So that's where we're at with our jail medical.
Tell me, what day did you say that was terminated?
Thursday, we learned last Thursday,
How long have you got to?
January 1. So we're in a pretty short timeline to get something done.
Wow.
There are contractors out there that provide jail services, and so I'm certain we'll get some interest and we'll get some people, but I expect the price will be more than what we've been paying. But we'll know something soon.
Other questions for the sheriff-elect? Seeing none, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Major Densler, you're up.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Business is good. As you can see, our intakes are up 809. The, only sent 5 to prison. We understand they kind of have a COVID problem like that goes around from one place to another. I think we have about 60 that needs to go down. You see our daily average. Everything seems like it's up a little bit on the first part. On the second page, we turned loose 368, which is a little less than last month, but this is supposed to be our slow time, but I don't think there is anymore. Back when on the first on this, the high count was 768, 131 females, and this day we'll probably end up booking 10,000 people this year. We're at 92,556. And on the next page, one thing I wanted to bring up a little bit, like I say, the COVID comes and goes. We've been was good for a month or two. And today we have 5 positives with 85 exposures, which, you know, that really makes our overcrowding. We look back, I mean, we was fine one day, and then within 2 weeks, it has grown. It's back, this count's back now, but on 11/30, we had 15 exposures and 204, let me back up, I'm sorry. 15 positives of 204 exposures. So it can come back that fast, and then that just overcrowds everything, trying to keep everybody separated. And our pretrial, as you can see, is growing, you know, up over 500 there for a little while. It's back down right now, this time of the year, but it's growing every month. In our last part of it, we have 101 sleeping on the floor, all males.
Questions for Major Densler? Seeing none, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Item 5 on the agenda is the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee update. Drew Smith.
Good evening. As of last week, there were 496 in pretrial in the jail. Over the past 2 months, returning home has had 19 arrivals, 9 absconds, 3 discharges, and 3 graduates. The mental health police referral for the Fayetteville CIT last month was 32. The failure to appear clinic that we had back in October, there was 1 plea and 11 continuances. As far as DUI arrests and release goes, there were 105 DWI, 2 DUI, and 7 DWI with drugs. And now that the CSU has been up and running, there were 39 referrals. For our Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee, we have been working with Arnold Ventures to get pretrial assessment application on a website so that we can do pretrial assessments in the jail. And that would be something that I would be taking on for a few months so that we can get metrics and to see if it would require a full-time position. Another thing that we would suggest to you is pretrial services. The purpose would be to aid pretrial defendants who are released on OR to get to their court date. The staff would be a supervisor, peer recovery specialists, and case managers. The duties would be to provide recovery support, provide resource aid such as identification, housing, employment, conduct risk assessments, check in with defendants as needed to ensure they stay clean and productive and get to their court dates. As of November 28th, the jail was at 183 inmates over capacity, and each case manager would take 40 defendants at a time. If we had 5 case managers, pretrial services could take up to 200 participants and would assess and accept 15 to 20 defendants per week until full. And once that's full, there would be a waiting list for people as they get their court date. then we would take new people on from the jail.
Questions for Ms. Smith? Justice Husher?
Thank you very much. Do you have an idea of what that would cost to hire those guys?
If we had a supervisor, 2 peer recovery specialists, and 5 case managers, it would be about $600,000 a year.
And if you could just refresh my memory a little bit on what that would do for us as far as moving people through.
Right. So right now, with the 496 that are in jail pretrial, we would be able to take out about 200 if we did get those 5 case managers. And so that would take the jail back to an operating capacity. And we would be able to do that on a basis where intake would come in 15 to 20 people a week that the case managers would be able to assess. And then as people have their court dates, which is about 15, there are 15 to 20 arraignments per week, 8.1 arraignments. And so if they are able to rotate that, that would be approximately 15 to 20 people per week that we would be able to get in and out through the system.
Okay, thank you.
Is the $650,000 number, is that a salary number or is that an inclusive number?
That is a salary number. We would still have to find office space for them and office supplies for them.
Other questions for Ms. Smith? Just,
So a follow-up question, one of the things we're going to be discussing just a little bit is adding on to the jail. And right now, there's no place there to do that, is there?
To have programs, there is no space for
Yes.
programming right now.
Yeah. And so we'd have to figure out where we could do that.
So we would have to figure out where we would office them because there is no office space in the county right now. It would, ideally, this would be ORing people outside and they would be checking in with case managers as if it was a parole officer. And so this would be an outside of the jail program.
Okay, so perhaps there's a building down there we could use for that in the proximity.
That would be a potential, yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
other questions for Ms. Smith? Seeing none, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
The next item on the agenda is item number 6. It's an ordinance appropriating a total of $8,812,332.75 from the American Rescue Plan Act Funds 3049. And the change was, instead of appropriating it to the sheriff's jail maintenance budget, it will be appropriated it to the American Rescue budget for 2023. That was a request of Assessor Hill. I make the motion that we move this to the Quorum Court or the Finance and Budget Committee with a due pass recommendation. If there's a second, we'll discuss it. We have 2 seconds. Discussion.
Thank you very much. I know that I received emails just like a lot of people did. Received the same email, exactly word for word, from about 40 or 50 people. And in it, it said that the voters very clearly said they didn't want to expand the jail. That wasn't what the voters said. The voters said they did not want a new tax. And it was a vote against the tax. It wasn't a vote against the jail. If you go down to that jail and you see how crowded it is, we have run out of space and we're letting people go that we shouldn't, and they're having to decide every day who they're going to let loose and who they're not. And you can see from the numbers tonight that whether we like it or not, Northwest Arkansas is growing. And every day as the guys back there that run the jail, there are more and more customers. Whether we like it or not, that's the reality of the situation. And then the last thing is that the point was made that there was no, that this does not fall under the American Rescue Plan. And I'd just like to point out that this whole thing was developed strictly for COVID. And we have to figure out a way to deal with COVID, and that's what that money was for, was to deal with COVID. And as he said tonight, we're running out of room, and we're trying to figure out where to put these people to keep them safe. And that's the whole reason that this specific piece of work is being done, is to mitigate or to help with the COVID outbreak that we're currently having. And that clearly falls under this plan. Thank you.
Other discussion? Other discussion? Seeing none, we'll have a public comment period. We will have a 12-minute public comment. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Public comment. Please state your name and where you live, ma'am.
Hi, Sarah Moore, Fayetteville, Arkansas. Many of you, over the last couple of years, we have had this conversation about the overcrowding or over-incarceration in our current jail. And we've also spent taxpayer dollars, $60,000 for the National Center for State Courts study that we got in August of 2020 that showed us a roadmap and investments that we could do that would actually reduce recidivism. We've heard from Sheriff Helder, who said that we can't incarcerate our way out of this. We've heard from the Chief of Police over Chief Reynolds in Fayetteville, who said we can't arrest our way out of this. But yet we're continuing to throw millions of dollars towards something that's not working. The public did. When I voted, when I went into the voting booth, I did vote for no jail. And so many constituents in the county also did that as well. I am incredibly concerned. The American Rescue Plan monies were brought forward to be able to help the disproportionately impacted populations that have been historically oppressed in some of our communities. People who are barely making ends meet, who are living in cars, who are camping, who have long haulers COVID, who have lived in generational poverty. We have incredible opportunities with this money. I feel very strongly that the wording from the Treasury does say that increasing carceral settings, congregational settings like this as a response to mitigate COVID is not allowable. And if you have any doubt, or if there's one seed of doubt in your mind, you should do more diligence to find out whether or not taxpayers are going to be strapped with repaying this money in the years to come. Many of us will move on from these seats of leadership. You know, JP sit for 2 years, county judges for 4. But the federal treasury can audit us at any time and come back to us. We sure hope that we don't get into such a downturn in our economy that we're not sitting on a big wad of money to repay this. I really ask for your consideration that you had a resounding message that taxpayers really want solutions that actually create well-being and safety in the community. And they're not warehousing folks in the jail where they don't get treatment and recovery services, they don't get housing stability. You have in front of you pretrial services. That's a very quick way with $600,000 that you can exit 200 people and you would create jail beds that would be available immediately. Let's move forward on something that works, that's proven, that actually improves well-being and safety in our community.
Next speaker.
This is just dawned in my lap this afternoon. I didn't really have much time to think about it, but I spent time in your jail. And what I'm not understanding is 40% of the inmates that are there are on a drug charge. We're dealing with an addiction, which is an illness, it's a sickness. Okay, so we're housing sickness and illness, right? And this is supposed to be for COVID, but yet you're putting us all together, keeping COVID alive in the walls. Right, and nothing's being helped with the illness, the sickness. It's a disease, right? So we're just caging a disease and keeping it locked down for 6 to 8 to 9 months to go to court, which we're paying for that instead of getting them some kind of assistance. Whereas, you know, where's the crime really at? That you're keeping us collecting money on us while we're sitting in your jails because I have an illness, or I'm a drug addict, right? That's the crime that I got to sit for 9 months. Instead of getting assistance, instead of getting help, so I get put back on the streets after 9 months, what happens? So we want a bigger jail for that? Doesn't make sense to me.
Next speaker.
Gladys Tiffany, Fayetteville. What I'd like to say to the committee tonight is that I'm very aware that all of you appreciate the level of honor and privilege that you receive as elected officials. And I would also like you to consider the idea that you are, by taking the step of disregarding the vote of the public against a jail expansion, is a very deep dishonoring of the electoral process, democracy, and all the voters of your county. And I seriously hope that you will be considering the fact that there are many, many people in the county that have many other needs in addition to whatever's going on within the jail. That's not the only problem that our county has. There have been 2 elections against jail expansion, and to think that that is just a tax issue is as oversimplification of a very, very deep sense in this county that there need to be other ways to deal with the problems that are stuck in the jail. And just remember that jail expansion is definitely ineligible for ARPA, and the wording is right there in the bill itself. And to just pretend that that is not true is an absence of wisdom that I think needs to be considered by the committee in a much more in-depth way than is being happening right now.
Next speaker.
Elizabeth Koger. I live at 3661 in East Embry Drive in Fayetteville. On July the 11th, at the Jail and Law Enforcement Committee, Mr. Chairman, you made this statement: I think it's time that we send this to the Finance and Budget Committee and ultimately to the Quorum Court, and that we let the taxpayers tell us if they want us to build a new jail. In addition, on the jail in Washington County, and it is important to me that we're going to do that, and we're going to get it done so that this special election will be held the same day as the general election in November. And on July 12th, also, J.P. Deacon said, I think that it's going to be great work for the people to decide in November whether or not this jail is a worthy endeavor. On July 21st, J.P. Usry said, it's hard to justify that we need to do this. We need to put it to the voters, and we need to be sure that we listen to all the voices, which is the challenges of a JP for all of us, that we have to hear we hear the loudest voices. They're here tonight, but we've got to listen to all the voices, and that putting it before the voters, that's what we're going to do, and we're going to listen to all the voters. On July 21st, J.P. Pond, who's not on the committee but is here tonight, he said, we probably don't want to forget we're going to getting ready to vote on this. We're voting to allow the people of Washington County to vote for or against this ordinance. We don't have the authority to vote for this, but all we can do is allow the voters of Washington County to express their wishes, their feelings.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Mac Mayfield, I live in Washington County. The same issue that was with the original ballot remains here. We don't know what it's going to cost to operate it. You haven't done the homework to tell us what the real bill is. You're putting us on the hook 2 ways. One, it's really clear the Department of Treasury is not going to allow this or come back for the money at a later date. And we don't know the operating cost. It's a pig in a poke. Thank you.
Next speaker.
Joshua LeMasters, Fayetteville. I'm here tonight as a voter who did vote against the jail. And as I talked to many friends, family members in the community, whenever I brought the issue up with them, they were shocked that this was even out for vote, that they did not want a bigger jail. And so I'm here to advocate for them and to advocate on behalf of myself as someone who had a family member who was a victim of the jail system in Missouri, in Joplin, Missouri, who was in for minor drug offenses over and over again. So I'm here to advocate for process improvements and other methods like we've heard tonight for improving the situation other than expansion. Thank you.
Next speaker, and we have 2 minutes left.
Monique Jones, Fayetteville, Arkansas. I want to speak to one of the issues that was clearly stated in the consultant's report. If you look on page 52, figure 10, examine that the jail's population by race for the time period of the analysis, the racial balance of the population has shifted slightly over time, with the proportion of Black inmates in the population increasing with approximately the same rate as a decrease in the population of white inmates. Aside from the difference in length of stay between the races included later in this analysis, the booking proportion for Black offenders has increased over time, as can be seen in figure 11. There's an adverse impact to an entire community of minority and marginalized Black community members, and we are the minority here, but we are the majority in jail. Something is wrong with that. And if you can't understand, I'm gonna close with what elect Judge Deakins just said. He said earlier, this is gamemanship and making me sick. He said he's disappointed that we are not serving the people. You are talking about the salaries, I'm talking about the jail. It's making me sick.
Next speaker, and we have 50 seconds. Talk fast, sir.
John Comstock, Rogers, Arkansas. Thanks for letting me be here. And the only reason I come before you is because I was a felony judge in Benton County, for a couple of years or a little less than 2 years. But listen, a real key is this pretrial services. In the presentation tonight, you may think that this is something that just was being developed, but know that your CJCC, they've been working through that, talking through that, making trips out of state, looking at other cities that have done it, had presentations. This is the key to this jail overcrowding issue. And when I say the key, I don't mean the only key, but it is the most significant. They estimate 200 to 300 people will get out of your jail once you implement pretrial services. And think of pretrial services. It's not just holding these people's hands. It's connecting them with services. I know you said that. Could I have just 1 minute? Well, could I have a couple sentences?
We'll give you 2 minutes,
Okay,
sir.
thank you.
Be
Thank you.
quick.
I appreciate it. What I would say is just know that there's a lot of effort behind that, and they don't just hold hands. These case managers will work with these individuals because the goal is, yes, hold them accountable for what they're charged for if it turns out they're guilty of something, but more importantly, don't have them come back. That's what this is all about, trying to break that cycle. So just know that. The other thing is, this bombshell you got tonight about medical services in your jail, this is huge. This is bigger than anything you can imagine. They're not going to be able to replace those medical services that easily between now and January 1st. I think you know that. Where's the malpractice going to come from for the practitioners that are going to try to take on these people? What I would ask you to consider is, he said we're going to book in maybe 10,000 people. Did you see where I think it's like 85% are pretrial detainees? Again, that tells you that the focus is, let's get these pretrial detainees. And what are these people anyway? They're people charged with a crime, presumed innocent, haven't been found guilty. They should be out on bond if they weren't poor. But since they're poor or they burned all their bridges with family, they can't get a bond posted. So figure out a way to get them out. But a lot of times you don't want to just send them out the door on an own recognizance, but maybe you're willing to do it if they have pretrial services. That is your key. I'll tell you what, it's really, and what I would encourage you to do, I know I'm talking fast because that's, my time is up. No, I appreciate it. I'm finished. Thank you.
Are you ready for the question? The question is on an ordinance appropriating a total of $8,812,332.75 from the American Rescue Plan Act Fund 3046 to American Rescue Budget for 2023. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. The motion carried. Item number 7 on the agenda is public comment. We have a 12-minute period for public comment. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Public comment.
Oh, hey, I apologize. I didn't know that you were going to have this additional time, or I would have just waited, but I appreciate it. So I won't take full 3 minutes here because there may be some other folks that want to talk. But on the ARPA thing, I don't know. Do you have a legal opinion? Have you got a detailed legal analysis? Because I hope you have something in place that somebody has assured you that this can be done. So, oh, sorry. I was just asking, I don't know this, and I'm assuming you have a legal opinion that tells you that the ARPA money can be spent the way that you are doing it, and if you haven't, I would sure urge caution. Of course, you've already voted, so that's a moot issue on that point. But again, back to pretrial services. I really just want to stress to you that if you would, it takes an ordinance, that's what I understand, from a JP. So maybe one of you folks would reach out to Drew Smith and tell her, sign me up, get this. We've already got the ordinance drafted. It's been drafted for well over a year, or a pro forma of it. A budget has already been laid out, I think, for over a year. All the information is there and will allow you to move quickly. And believe me, the sheriff needs you to move quickly, because not just because of what they said, 100 and so folks on the floor, but this medical services, you want to keep paying all these people's medical bills? Get them out of jail and let them be responsible for their own medical bills. I mean, doesn't that appeal to you? It should. Why be responsible for their medical bills? That it is going to break this county when you try to see what it's going to cost to replicate the services that this group that's being provided, medical services. And keep in mind, hey, they have no experience with going out and bidding this contract. Medical services hasn't been submitted to a bid to the public since 2015, which means they're not going to known waters, and they've got all these groups that they have established relationships with that they can pull in to Washington County Jail to provide medical services. No, they are scrambling fast and hard to try to find resources for that, and all it's going to do is cost you folks a lot more money. I'm just saying, reduce your jail population. Thanks.
Next speaker.
Hi, I'm Dinah Nash. I'm a criminologist, retired criminologist and social worker. I was the director of the criminal justice program at NWAC, and I taught there 5 years. And I taught at UALR, criminology and sociology. And I think I have a perspective on this that you might want to hear. The items that were presented to a committee a couple of weeks ago that supposedly you were going to use these funds for were general maintenance funds. I mean, the ARPA funds are not for buying air conditioners and security cameras. That does not address the COVID influx. Does not, or any of those problems. So anyway, what I want to say is the sheriff's problems are real problems, but there's a solution, which is to deal with it better on the front end, the pretrial services that need to take place. That is going to solve the problem. And the other thing is, I've heard that you all are concerned because other counties are putting their inmates in your jail. Well, they need to do the very same thing that this county needs to do. deal with the problems on the front end and you don't have so many problems on the back end. Furthermore, more of the troublemakers will be out of your jail and paying their own medical bills. Win-win. Thank you.
Next speaker.
Can y'all hear me? Okay, you hear me now? Okay. Irvin Camacho, Springdale, Arkansas. I've worked with the Bell Project here in the jails for the past 3 or 4 years, and I've spoken to all these individuals, that are part of our criminal justice system, that navigate through it, that struggle with it. And for me, it just seems morally incorrect that you're going to be using this money to build a bigger jail instead of helping these individuals directly. These pretrial services are important. They've worked in other parts of the country, and a lot of people in my community don't come to these meetings because they feel like they're talking to a wall. And I feel that way tonight, but I think I have a moral obligation to say that building a bigger jail is not going to solve our problems. And I did vote against the jail. I did not vote against the tax. And many people in my community did the same thing. It's not going to solve our problems. It's just a small Band-Aid. And the more people come to our area, we're just going to continue building bigger jails, and we're just going to continue doing that and never really solving the main issue. Like I said, I do feel like I'm talking to a wall, but I felt the moral obligation to come up here and tell you how I feel.
Thank you, sir.
Monique Jones, Fayetteville, just something simple. I was thinking, she came before you and asked for $600,000 to support the CJCC and get more positions in order to assist with pretrial. But we're not even considering taking $600,000 out of this $8 million we're gonna put into the jail. Let's reconsider these funding and how we're gonna fund our community. If we're saying you really wanna take control of these jails, she just gave you a number. You asked her, JP Ussery, how much is it going to cost to fund those positions? $600,000 of that $8.8 million you're putting towards the jail could help her with those pretrial services. Thank you.
Next speaker.
Hi again. I'm involved in a program now called New Beginnings, and they're only asking a third of that money to build homes and to help the lower income or the people that are in my position. And I'm in drug court. I don't think they'd be asking that much money to help and to do that. It does change lives, giving us homes, giving us a future, not putting us in bars.
Next speaker.
Hello, I'm Seth Edwards, Fayetteville, Arkansas. I just sat through a meeting where I watched you guys hem and haw and pull teeth and nail about giving low-salaried workers for the county a few extra dollars so that they can actually support their families, and then only to turn around and so quickly to build a jail that, quite frankly, the county actually doesn't need. What the county needs is pretrial services and a little thing called OR. You just let people out that are nonviolent offenders. You house people that you're scared of, not people that you're mad at.
Next speaker.
Hello, I'm Dot Neely, Fayetteville, Arkansas. Do I need to do address or anything, or just, that's what I say? Okay. According to an article in The Nation magazine published in July 26 this year, it's called Easy Money, How Counties Are Funneling COVID Relief Funds into New Jails. And in that article, it says the acting counsel for the Office of the Inspector General in the U.S. Treasury, A.J. Altimus, said that he referred to the overview of the final rules for the ARPA funds, which states the use of the $10 million standard allowance for replacing public sector lost revenue must be consistent with the use of fund requirements. Treasury presumes that construction of new correctional facilities as a response to an increase in the rate of crime is generally ineligible. So again, this is an article in The Nation magazine published July 26, 2022. Easy Money, How Counties Are Funneling COVID Relief Funds into New Jails. Thank you.
Next speaker.
I'll be short. Leilani Law, Fayetteville. I'm an advocate for the youth of this community. We need to heal. There's healing that needs to be done here. I am ashamed of this vote. I voted against the monies used to expand the jail. I mean, have you seen the film, Build It and It Will Come? Are we not dealing with the issue that's really at hand here? There are people hurting every day. When I look at you, I don't want a future. I'm in touch with the youth, and there is a future with them, and you are not serving it.
Next speaker, we have 1 minute and 40 seconds.
Well, I'll try to go really fast. Sarah Moore, and I'm coming up from Fayetteville, Arkansas. Can you hear me okay? Speaking from the Arkansas Justice Reform Coalition as the executive director, I really want to extend an invitation to collaborate and workshop going forward about the way that we spend the additional ARPA dollars and about the kind of investments we can create in our community ongoing. I know that whenever there was the Fayetteville Chamber of Commerce Forum, J.P. Deacons was running for county judge and spoke about how he was going to collaborate with all viewpoints, with everyone across all of Washington County. I hope that himself and all of the JPs that are in office, while they got voted in their particular area, you ultimately are responsible to all the people of Washington County and all the varying viewpoints. And we saw across the spectrum that many of these votes were incredibly close. And so we have a lot of viewpoints that need to be a part of this conversation that have expertise and have the ability to create solutions. And so I really would ask for us to pause and to say, what is possible with this money? We have been asking you for 2 years since this money came to fruition, when CARES money came and then ARPA, to really talk about what's possible with this money. What kind of solutions can we create that ultimately the dollar spent, how many additional dollars could it generate in our economy and for the people of Washington County? Our community deserves that. I'd like to extend that as AJRC, as a community member, and as a future city council member from the city of Fayetteville. Thank you.
Thank you. The public